So as you've already heard the introductions, we have Fatima Al-Mehri, who will give us more of a kind of a regulatory government enabler side to things, and Zoe Rupakia. Okay, Rupakia.
Well done.
Not too bad. A little bit more of the analysis and the actual application of it from an academic side. So I wanted to start with you, Fatima. The UAE has been a leader in adopting emerging technologies. You work for a ministry that is really looking at it and has it in its name as advanced technologies. So what are you doing to accelerate adoption of AI and encourage this in the industrial sector?
First of all, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Mohammed. Let me take you through what we do in the ministry when it comes to emerging technologies and, to be specific, AI. So firstly, the Ministry of Industry and Advanced Technology, their main vision is to contribute to the GDP through the industry by 300 billion in 2031. So there are two parts, the industry and advanced technology. They come in parallel. And we work in the advanced technology specifically to empower or to accelerate the technology transformation for manufacturers. So if we want to speak about AI, I can give you a very recent initiative that we worked on, which is the AI Innovation Program. So we in the ministry, we want to ensure that all the ecosystem is involved. So we have this AI Innovation Program that we launched earlier this year during Make It in the Emirates Forum. It's a procurement program where we open opportunities for tech providers, specifically AI solution providers, to come and solve industry challenges. So we see the demand when there is, which is an industry challenge, and then we see the supply where we can deploy these technology solutions that are AI related from our tech partners. So we as a governing body, we always ensure that we engage the whole ecosystem and focus on the emerging technologies that will support accelerating the transformation of our manufacturers. We also launched a use case guide. The use case guide also support manufacturers when it comes to implementing quick wins or quick solutions for certain use cases. And 13 of the use cases that we packaged in our report are AI related. So those are some of the efforts that the ministry is doing towards AI.
Yeah, thank you. And for you, Zoe, if we look at cybersecurity, which is obviously the flip side of it, right? So the more you digitalize, the more channels are open up for bad actors to play in. What do you see as the major vulnerabilities in industrial control systems, and how can AI-driven solutions solve for that?
So to just highlight how important there was a survey some years ago between safety professionals in critical infrastructure in countries like UK, Germany, US, Japan, Mexico. And they said that they all had one cyber attack to report. So it's quite important. So the major vulnerability when we talk about industrial control systems is, of course, the legacy systems. These are systems that are outdated, are designed to work in an isolated environment, and because of that, they don't have the security features to protect when they connect in this interconnected environment nowadays. And another problem also, of course, is how you bring them to today's world, how you connect them with new technologies. So there are issues there of interoperability and compatibility, and that malicious people actually exploit. The second most important vulnerability is also what we call weak network segmentation. So we have different types of networks. The operational technology networks that is more autonomous, more isolated, and we have the IT networks that is more connected to the internet. And when these are not segmented securely enough, it brings weak spots that can be exploited for attacks. Then there is a common thing as default passwords that these systems use. Systems that not get updated often. So we have systems that we leave them there without using the new patches, the new update information. And supply chain vulnerabilities. So what happened with CrowdStrike last year is that third vendors' software we downloaded in our companies, and then it would reduce vulnerabilities. That's what happened with the CrowdStrike, that it causes a global power outage last year. That's what happened with the case study of SolarWind in 2020, which is a company that has a network management software. One update, one platform was exposed. Thousands of companies download the software, and it was a third vendor problem. So how AI can solve that? So there are three ways: detect, predict, respond. So AI can detect anomalies by monitoring network traffic. It can also build what we say cyber threat intelligence. So we can use historic data or real-time data to make and build models that can actually predict cyber attacks. And of course, there is also systems that can take the compromised system automatically out of the system. So that's the response system. And the finally common is that apart from technology, one massive vulnerability is humans. Because we exploit what we call social engineering. They exploit the weaknesses of human nature, like we give passwords, we leave the doors open. And there are AI and behavior analytics that can also simulate and predict that.
So that's the next phase of risk, right? That
yes, and I guess the next phase is how to bring all this together, how to bring safety and security together, because for many years, these sectors were developed in silos. So how we have systems that they are both safe for the workers, but also secure in terms of cybersecurity.
And I think that's maybe where your role comes in, Fatima. So the role of government and kind of regulations around this to adapt this technology, but also have the resilience while bringing it through. So what is Moyat doing in this sense?
Okay, so talking about industrial resilience, let me first take you through one of our programs that we work on, the Technology Transformation Program, where we have several transformation initiatives under it. One of those flagship initiatives is creating an index. It's the first of its kind in the region, where it measures the digital maturity of manufacturers in parallel with sustainability. So it integrates also sustainability. So those dimensions are aligned with whatever is emerging. So every 2 years, the framework is reviewed to ensure that those manufacturers have some sort of motivation to ensure that they're deploying or introducing the right emerging technologies that will benefit their productivity on the long run. But again, I think as Zoe mentioned, safety is also important. And as AI is something that is with a lot of advantages, but we also need to consider the disadvantages. That's why we have also the Ministry of AI having a framework where it has several core principles when it comes to AI ethics and whether it was bias, transparency, explainability. There are different things to ensure that it comes from the top to the bottom. That is how we guide the way forward. So in the ministry, when it comes to industry resilience, other than what we do in our technology transformation program, we also ensure that we encourage them through incentives. So we do offer a variety of incentives in terms of adopting emerging technologies or technologies in general. We do offer free assessments, in-country value bonus, golden visa nominations based on their ITTI score. We also take them to the next step. So let's say I'm doing well, but I don't know how to implement. So we matchmake them with technology providers. So we ensure that they're in the right path. And this will help them through our Transform 4.0 program, which is what comes after the assessment. We also consider the whole manufacturing ecosystem, so we don't only focus on manufacturers, but we also don't forget SMEs and startups. So that's something that we're trying to also be agile and always be considerate, especially that there are a lot of successful spin-outs worldwide, and we want to make sure that we invest in the right like talent.
So when you kind of make this assessment on the index, it provides whoever was assessed with kind of a baseline, right, where they
Yes.
where they can go. Have you done it like countrywide to know where all the facilities are?
So we did it across all Emirates. Up to today, we have more than 500 assessments. Because the assessment is not mandatory, that's why it's not still covering all manufacturers, but we always encourage them, as I said, through our different incentives to make sure that they know where they are. We give them the right recommendation and how can they move as a next step. It's very important because sometimes you think you are really there, but then you see that those pinpoints where you can work on. So even what makes our index unique is we do highlight 5 prioritization areas that they can focus on as next step. So this is again ensuring that it's not just putting things and like having evidence-based data, but it's because we want them to actually work upon it.
Are you going to build a model that would do the assessment, or is it still humans that have to go do that?
I mean, yes, why not? But for now, we want to make sure our assessor community is also benefiting from that.
Okay. Zoe, so when we talk about all this stuff, and especially when you think about like smaller manufacturers, SMEs, they might look at this and see a big, dirham sign in front of them, big costs. So how do you balance both that, imperative to invest in technology for the future, and then the additional, however X amount percentage has to go in for cybersecurity on top of that?
Yeah, that's a very $1 million question that SMEs don't have. It's quite important when it comes to small SMEs that they have very restricted budgets. How can they actually balance the cost of cybersecurity with other things that they have to do? And it's a problem that is not only about cybersecurity. It's a problem that we have seen in adoption of digital technologies in general in the Industry 4. What happens in the UK, at least, by analyzing, we did a project some years ago on the impact of digital manufacturing, and one of the weaknesses that came is that the fragmentation of knowledge out there, that SMEs don't know which solution to choose, and they don't know if the solution that they choose works. So it's important to create some shared knowledge, either by government initiative or other organization initiative or from the industry itself, to share solutions that they work. Another thing is that when you have a small budget, of course, you have to invest in the high impact areas, or the areas that have a high risk and high impact if something goes wrong. And of course, they don't need to implement the most advanced AI solution out there. Just some software that can scan their code or their applications for vulnerabilities, that's cost effective. Usually, we see all these hype technologies out there, and we usually go with for the most expensive technology, the most expensive model. We see that with language models, for example, nowadays. Language models are very cool, but there are very small models that can solve some problems with more energy efficiency, more cost efficiency, more cost in terms of training these models. So I think SMEs can find these low-cost solutions. And of course, when they looked at return on investment, they need to change their indicators a bit. So what is more important, like profit sometimes, what is more important is safety, not having accidents. How much is the cost of a human life when we talk about return on investment? So invest in safety, invest in security, and that will lead to fewer injuries, lower insurance costs, lower downtime of machines that we not lose. You will have, I guess, happier and more productive employees. So collaboration is a key between different organizations and start something.
Well, I'll go to you, Fatima. You kind of touched Zoe on the safety element of it, and my question for you is, how do you kind of foster and allow industries to embrace this safety-first culture? What can be done from a government side? Yeah.
Okay, so as you said, everything has like two sides, right? So when we talk about ensuring safety-first culture, I think this is the most important thing in any industry. So I think one of the things to consider is when you do have new machines, new technologies that are like within the factory, the most crucial thing is ensuring the right training is taken. So to avoid any near miss, any, as Zoe mentioned, like hazardous incidents, training is very crucial. And I think it shouldn't be only done on like quarterly basis, but should be done as often as needed, because you never know what might happen. And then considering, for example, some robotics, you need to ensure if what can be the signs that it might affect the employees in a way, because we did hear some stories, right? I did visit one of the factories where they make sure the robots are in fences, so no one will come near it, or there will be some very strict instructions when it comes to that. So as any normal factory where they do some safety and risk assessments and instructions, I think this should be done also and doubled when it comes to those new technologies. On the other hand, I think AI can also play a role in ensuring more safety if it's used in the right way. One example can be referred specifically to, for example, predictive maintenance. So sometimes getting yourself into a certain or working closely to a certain machine that where you have predictive maintenance that might allow you to have less risks in being injured or something. For example, if you're having to go to a field and it was a very vast area, and then there is like an attack by not a predator, but like anything in the desert can happen, an AI can help you, or a smart machine can help you. So I think it works both sides, but again, the right instructions, the right training is crucial, and as we said before, it should come from the leadership towards the shop floor employees, just to make sure like everyone is restricted and take it very seriously when going to their work every day.
Should it come from beyond the leadership? Should it come from as a regulatory imperative, given really the benefits that you put out, right? So, you know, if you leave it just to companies, they may make a cost-benefit analysis and not implement it. Whereas if it's regulatory and we know that it's going to improve everything, then they should go for it.
Of course.
They need to go for it. They must.
Yeah. So there are the right entities that identify what's need to be done, and there are like that regular checkups that are done upon factories. So it is very crucial, but again, it will not be done on daily basis. So it's always important it happens from within.
Yeah, I agree. So one thing that, you know, from my non-expert lens comes up all the time is this idea of you know, AGI, singularity, however you want to think about it. And when we put that in our imaginations and place it against cyber, is there anything that can be done today, or maybe like in a couple of years when it actually happens, or whatever the timeline you have, that would thwart these types of attacks? And this is my question for you, Zoe. Like, what are we looking at for the future?
I think that sometimes we're too focused on futuristic risks rather than risks and biases that occur right now and then are actually solvable. So we have seen globally there is a debate in AI regulation, and one part of the debate is focused on existential risks, on what we should do for the future of humanity. And they, in my opinion at least, don't purposely, on purpose or not, I don't know, they don't focus on issues that we face now with artificial intelligence technologies here and now. So there's issues that we know about them. We know about the biases in the AI systems. So for example, if we use facial recognition systems in any kind of monitoring in factories, we know that they come with a certain bias, especially when they're trained in the Western world. They don't recognize the faces of non-white background people. They don't recognize very well the faces of women. We know, for example, that there are cybersecurity problems. We know that voice recognition, for example, comes with biases. We know that language modeling that is trained on Western data doesn't take into account the context and the culture of other places in the world. You are here in Abu Dhabi, you have completely different culture. We see that, for example, Singapore tries to develop their own language model to integrate their language and the cultures. So, yes, there might be some very future risk, but there are things that we can do now. And that's why I think it's very important to support all these regulation initiatives and guidelines that they happened right now at the moment. Just in September, Council of Europe had the first legal binding AI treaty for human rights and safety that many different countries have endorsed. We know that EU and with the AI Act moves to this regulatory environment. We know that African Union this year has announced their own national AI strategy. ASEAN have their own ASEAN guidelines. In the US, we have the executive order of Biden. In Canada, we're towards the developments of the Data AI Act. And if we want to focus for cybersecurity, there are joint efforts. For example, just this year, there was a joint statement for the AI security, but from the cybersecurity offices of, I think, New Zealand, Australia, UK, US, Canada. Okay, I might, yeah, I'm not sure about the countries, but yeah, there were 4 or 5 countries that actually talk about how we can deploy AI systems securely. They give guidelines for the use of AI, especially for public purposes, public procurement. So I really love these discussions, but these discussions comes and they say, oh, we should not regulate. So what's the point? So let's focus here and now on the problems that we can solve, and we can solve them easily if we had the coalition and the will.
Maybe it's not a call to inaction, but is it to reimagine the vulnerabilities of the future? That's really what I'm trying to get at here. So can we kind of think of ourselves as this singularity, as the AGI? What would they see as what would it see as a vulnerability? I don't know whatever you want to call it as an acronym or as a pronoun, but how do we build for that future is really the question.
Building by facing the challenges we face now. So if we think about the future and we don't face the legacy systems, we don't solve the legacy systems, I can tell you now the problems of what this AGI will do. It will attack the legacy systems, the weak segmentations, the humans, the passports. If we don't solve this, we build up from there.
The current weaknesses and the layer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. We're getting close to our time here, so I want any closing remarks, Fatima. What should we take away from this?
I think one important thing to consider when implementing AI, whether it was in the manufacturing industry or any other industries, is we try to leave no one behind. So it's always important to think of the people that might lose their jobs and what can be done in parallel. Could they have like some upskilling, reskilling? I think this is important to consider. And it's also very important to consider the whole ecosystem in terms of how can we empower our startups and SMEs and not just look on the medium to large size companies.
And for you, Zoe, I would say as well, closing remarks and really just what do you expect, at least from the academic side, of regulators in this field specifically? In this field,
as I mentioned, I expect, and I think that we're going towards that, is to unify the safety and the security research together. It's because so far we had systems for safety or systems for security. We have this interconnected environment now. We should build them together. The same as the manifesto earlier, we should bring safety and the safety sector and the technology sector together to face some problems. And that, and I will go back to the question about the culture, you need a commitment from leadership. You need the people to listen to people, to listen to their concerns, but without the leadership commitment, all these initiatives are just words on paper. So I think that's my final remark. Let's commit to that.
That's very nice. Well, thank you so much. That was really illuminating for me, and thank you all for listening to us.